Hello, everybody. My name is Gina Faarup, and today I'm going to read to you a chapter from this great book, The Ickabog by JK Rowling. Chapter 52, Mushrooms. Never would Daisy and Martha forget the taste of those barren stone pies after the long years of cabbage soup at Ma Grunter's. Indeed, Martha burst into tears after the first bite, and she said she'd never known food could be like this. All of them forgot about the Ickabog while eating. Once they'd finished the pies, they felt braver, and they got up to explore the Ickabog's cave by the light of the fire. "Look," said Daisy, who'd found drawings on the wall. 100 shaggy Ickabogs were being chased by stickmen with spears. "See this one," said Roderick, pointing at the drawing close to the mouth of the cave. By the light of the Ickabog's fire, the foursome examined a picture of a lone Ickabog standing face to face with a stick figure wearing a plumed helmet and holding a sword. "That looks like the king," whispered Daisy, pointing at the figure. "You don't think he really saw the Ickabog that night, do you?" The others couldn't answer, of course, but I can. I'll tell you the whole truth now, and I hope you won't be annoyed that I didn't before. Fred really did catch a glimpse of the Ickabog in the thick marsh mist that fatal night when Major Beamish was shot. I can also tell you that the following morning, the old shepherd who thought his dog had been eaten by the Ickabog heard a whining and scratching at the door and realized that faithful Patch had come home again because, of course, Spittleworth had set the dog free from the brambles in which he was trapped. Before you judge the old shepherd too harshly for not letting the king know that Patch hadn't been eaten by the Ickabog after all, you should remember that he was weary after this long journey to Chewville. In any case, the king wouldn't have cared. Once Fred had seen the monster through the mist, nothing and nobody would have persuaded him it wasn't real. "I wonder," said Martha, "why the Ickabog didn't eat the king. Maybe he really did try to fight it off, the stories say?" asked Roderick doubtfully. "You know, it's strange," said Daisy, turning to look at the Ickabog's cave, "that there aren't any bones in here if the Ickabog eats people." "I must eat the bones too," said Bert. His voice was shaking. Now Daisy remembered that, of course, they must have been wrong in thinking that Major Beamish had died in an accident on the marsh. Clearly, the Ickabog had killed him, after all. She just reached for Bert's hand to show him she knew how horrible it was for him to be in the lair of his father's killer when they heard heavy footsteps outside again and knew the monster had returned. All four dashed back to the soft pile of sheep's wool and sat down in it as though they never moved. There was a loud rumble as the Ickabog rolled back the stone, letting in the wintry chill. It was still snowing hard outside, and the Ickabog had a lot of snow trapped in its hair. In one of its baskets, it had a large number of mushrooms and some firewood. In the other, it had some frozen Chewville pastries. While the teenagers watched, the Ickabog built up the fire again and placed the icy block of pastries on a flat stone beside it, where they slowly began to thaw. Then, while Daisy, Bert, Martha, and Roderick watched, the Ickabog began eating mushrooms. It had a curious way of doing so. It speared a few at a time on a single spike protruding from each paw, then picked them off delicately in its mouth, one by one, chewing them up with what looked like great enjoyment. After a while, it seemed to become aware that the four humans were watching it. "Roar!" it said again, and fell back to ignoring them until it had eaten all the mushrooms, after which it carefully lifted the unfrozen chewy pastries off the warm rock and offered them to the humans in its huge, hairy paws. "It's trying to fatten us up," said Martha in a terrified whisper, but nevertheless, she seized a Polaroid fancy, and the next second, Her eyes were closed in ecstasy. After the Ickabog and the humans had eaten, the Ickabog put its 2 baskets away tidily in a corner, poked up the fire, and moved to the mouth of the cave where the snow continued to fall and the sun was beginning to set. With a strange noise you'd recognize if you've ever heard a bagpipe inflate before somebody starts to play it, the Ickabog drew in breath and began to sing in a language none of the humans could understand. The song echoed forth over the marsh as darkness fell. The 4 teenagers listened and soon felt drowsy, and one by one they sank back into the nest of sheep's wool and fell asleep. That was chapter 52, Mushrooms, from the book The Ickabog by JK Rowling. So stay tuned to continue to watch the next chapters. Thank you. Chapter 53, The Mysterious Monster. It was several days before Daisy, Bert, Martha, and Roderick plucked up the courage to do anything other than eat the frozen food that the Ickabog brought them from the wagon and watch the monster eat the mushrooms it foraged for itself. Whenever the Ickabog went out, always rolling the enormous boulder into the mouth of the cave to stop them from escaping, they discussed its strange ways, but in low voices, in case it was lurking on the other side of the boulder, listening. One thing they argued was whether about the Ickabog was a boy or a girl. Daisy, Bert, and Roderick all thought it must be male because of the booming depth of its voice. But Martha, who'd looked after sheep before her family had starved to death, thought the Ickabog was a girl. Its belly's growing, she told them. I think it's going to have babies. The other thing the children discussed, of course, was exactly when the Ickabog was likely to eat them and whether they were going to be able to fight it off when it tried. I think we've got a bit of a time yet, said Bert, looking at Daisy and Martha, who were still very skinny from their time at the orphanage. You two wouldn't make much of a meal. If I got it around the back of the neck, said Roderick, mimicking the action, and Bert hit it really hard in the stomach. We'll never be able to overpower the Ickabog, said Daisy. It can move a big boulder as big as itself. We're nowhere near strong enough. If only we had a weapon, said Bert, standing up and kicking a stone across the cave. Don't you think it's odd, said Daisy, that all we've seen the Ickabog eat is mushrooms? Don't you feel as though it's pretending to be fiercer than it really is? It eats sheep, said Martha. Where did all this wool come from, if it hasn't eaten sheep? Maybe it just saved up wisps of wool caught on brambles, suggested Daisy, picking up a bit of the soft white fluff. I still don't understand why there aren't any bones in here, if it isn't in the habit of eating creatures. What about that song it sings every night, said Bert. It gives me the creeps. If you ask me, that's a battle song. It scares me too, agreed Martha. I wonder what it means, said Daisy. A few minutes later, the giant boulder at the mouth of the cave shifted again, and the Ickabog reappeared with its 2 baskets, one full of mushrooms as usual, and the other packed with frozen Kurtzberg cheeses. Everyone ate without talking, as they always did, and after the Ickabog had tidied away its baskets and poked up the fire, it moved, as the sun was setting, to the mouth of the cave, ready to sing its strange song in the language the humans couldn't understand. Daisy stood up. What are you doing? Whispered Bert, grabbing her ankle. Sit down! No, said Daisy, pulling herself free. I want to talk to it. So she walked boldly to the mouth of the cave and sat down beside the Ickabog. Oh, I can't wait to see what happens in the next chapter, so stay tuned in this readings of The Ickabog by JK Rowling. Thank you.